How you going, all you beautiful people, and welcome back. Good to see you. Now, in my last video, I was talking about how the ego is not such a bad thing after all. It's actually a beautiful thing, or at the very least, a neutral thing when seen correctly. And if my editing skills are half decent, it should appear here. So you might have watched that video and thought, yes, I'm convinced, he's right. The ego isn't really a problem. But now what do I do? And like I mentioned in that video, the ego has three components: the sense of identity, sense of ownership, and sense of control. Now we're going to tackle these last two that cause all the misery and suffering with two different approaches: the path of knowledge and the path of devotion. What's the difference if you're new? The path of knowledge is realizing your oneness with all of reality through knowledge, through hearing teachings, through reading teachings, through using the intellect to contemplate these teachings and come to the conclusion it is correct. There is just the one appearing as many. If you're not into that kind of stuff, if you're full of love, if you're very extroverted, you'll hear this kind of stuff and go, I don't care about all this nonsense, all this talk and reading. I just love. I love people. I love God. And I got you covered there too. So now, the path of knowledge. What are we going to do? Our little friend, self-inquiry. And I know what you're thinking if you've seen a few of these. It's like that scene in Karate Kid 3. This one.
Why do I have to do this with this thing?
Because it's a part of the training.
I know you're thinking, it's repetitive. Why do I have to do this? Because it's part of the training. So, let's do some self-inquiry. If you're new to this, it's proving a point. Are you aware of this body? Or is it aware of you? I'm aware of this body. Are you aware of your breathing? The thing they tell you to focus on in meditation. Are you aware of it, or is it aware of you? Well, I'm aware of the breathing. Your feelings. Are you aware of them? Yes, I'm aware of them. They're always changing. They're not aware of me. Your thinking. I'm aware of my thoughts. They aren't aware of me. Now your ego, your sense of self, the feeling of I am. Are you aware of that? I feel it in my head, behind my eyes, in between my ears. What about this sense of existing? I exist. This also belongs to this body. This is what's lighting up this body, these thoughts, feelings, perceptions. This feeling of consciousness isn't you either. There is something prior to that, something that knows the consciousness of this body. The awareness, pure awareness that you are, knows the consciousness of this body that is lighting up all of experience. I've done this technique many times. So if you've heard me do it many times and gone through this exercise with me, you know what I'm talking about. You come to the conclusion, I am just a knowing presence. You can't know yourself directly because you can only know things with objective qualities. And you start intuiting you have non-objective qualities. You're like a knowing light, a knowing presence. Now that we've got that in our minds, that we can only intuit what we are, it's like a knowing presence, knowing light. How does this knowing presence own anything? It can't. Its nature is just to know, to shine. It can't own anything. So there goes your ownership, which the ego claims. What about a sense of control? Again, it's just a knowing presence, a knowing light. It can't control anything. Its nature is just to know. That is your true essence, just to know, a knowing presence, a knowing light. So that will get rid of your sense of ownership and control when you contemplate that fact. Also, you might be saying, I thought this is a non-dual teaching. This still sounds like duality. There's a knowing presence, which I am, experiencing an objective world. I have non-objective qualities experiencing an objective world. This seems like two things. And like I mentioned in my non-duality for beginners video, they're not two things. They're one and the same, which I won't expand on in this video. Go check out that video if you have any more questions. We exist and we think, I just exist as this, not this. So what this teaching does, what this exercise does, is to decondition you for thinking you're this body. It does create a duality. It makes you think, I'm a knowing presence, knowing a world. So there still is a duality, but in the end, again, you absorb reality back into yourself. So again, you get to reclaim the body. Good on you. You get to claim this back that you thought you were, but you need to claim all of creation with you. If you want to claim this, you need to claim it all. If you don't want to claim this, you can't claim this body either. It's either one or the other. So now, if you've come to these videos and you're more devotional, you have a devotional attitude to God, you might be seeing all this talk and It's all nonsense, ridiculous. I just love God. So how do you give up the sense of ownership and control with the God framework? Well, again, ownership. What are the three things you can claim ownership over? If someone gives you something, you can claim you own it. If you create something, you can claim you own it. Or if you own the material something's made from, you can claim you own it. Did anyone give you this body? Do you remember God saying, here's your body, it's yours? Do you have like the papers for it, like a car, Rego? I don't. I don't remember being given it. Did you create it? I don't remember creating this body. Do you own the materials that this body is made from? The food, water, oxygen, do you own those materials? No. So why are you claiming this to be you? This all belongs to God. This is God's creation, God's world, and this body is part of that creation. So why are you claiming it? Also, you might say, but I have free will. I'm free to do what I want in this reality that God created. Well, do you really have free will? Or is everything just happening according to God's will? I'm going to make a video on free will in the future. But if you're into the teachings of God and Christianity, you'll hear something along the lines of, your free will is what you want to happen. God's will is what ends up happening. So what's the point? It's like being in a car. You're the passenger with a steering wheel. God's in the driver's seat. So you might turn right and God turns right. You might turn left, but God turns right. In other words, sometimes things go as you want. Sometimes they don't because you're not in control of it. This is God's movie, God's dream, God's show, God's will. So if you didn't create this body, it all belongs to God. And if you're not in control, God's in control, why are you suffering? Why are you thinking you have ownership and control? You own nothing. You didn't ask to be here. God needed you here to serve him or her or it. God's creation. I should also add, if you're devotional in nature, look at everything else in life. Do trees think they're growing and then they go, oh, I'm growing lemons. Oh, the lemons I grew weren't that big. They're so small. Everything in nature knows what to do. All the animals, all the plants. It's only us humans where we got it in our head that we're in control. We're getting things done. But we're a part of nature. Just because we think we're in control doesn't mean it is the case. So I've just thought I'd leave that final thought with you. So I hope this video has helped you, whether you're going down the path of knowledge, non-duality, or the path of devotion, a devotion to a higher power. All these practices and teachings are trying to get rid of this sense of ownership and control, which, like I said, is the cause of all suffering. Feeling like you're a person is a beautiful thing. Having an identity is great. It allows you a point of view to experience what you're apparently not. Harmless. Like I said, Jesus, Buddha, any enlightened person would have, if their name was called out, would have went, yes, what is it? They would acknowledge you. They were enlightened, they felt one with all, but they still understood they are appearing as a person. It's totally harmless, it's all good. So like I said, pick your path, knowledge or devotion, and really work on this sense of ownership and control. It's where all the suffering is. As always, thank you so much for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. This is a passion of mine. And if you like hearing it, there's plenty more to come. Take care, guys.